Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite weapons in the arsenal of Spy, which is the Ambassador Revolver, and I'm going to be telling you some tips that I've picked up on how to use the weapon. So I must make the obligatory disclaimer, which is that I'm not the very best Spy player, as you can probably tell, but I think I can pass on some tips, especially if you're a newer player related to the use of this very interesting weapon. So the weapon's not very hard to understand. It does triple damage on headshot, in exchange for a slower firing speed and less damage, and no random crits as well. So how do you use this revolver? Well, obviously it's not quite as straightforward as just aiming for the head, because the revolver does have significant damage fall off at longer ranges, which means the optimal place to use this revolver is when you're close to your target. At point blank range it can deal over 100 damage, which is already pretty good. It can one-shot a half-health soldier. But at that kind of ranges, you should be using your knife as well. So how are you going to choose between them? Well, obviously, the knife is at its best when you're attacking an enemy from behind, and it's not very great in any situation. Other than that, that's what Spy is designed around, getting backstabs. So if you're against an opponent who is aware of your presence and you don't think you can trick-stab them, then your best bet is to pull out your revolver, and if they're close enough, you will find it easy enough to hit them in the head, with some practice. Now, if they're wearing the Razorback, which is one very good use of your revolver against Razorback snipers, then you have extra time to aim, because usually they'll be very tunnel visioned and very unlikely to look at you. So here, just take as much time as you need, don't start shooting straight away or they'll notice your presence, and may try to kill you with the Kukri, which has a 100% crit rate. Now, let's talk about dealing with scouts. Scouts are very fast. Therefore, they're difficult to headshot. Don't be afraid to finish off a scout with a few body shots if at all necessary. It's not as flashy or as glamorous as a headshot, or maybe even as fun, but it gets the job done, especially if the scout's distracted or low health. Of course, you're very unlikely to win a direct 1v1 fight with a scout because of his scattergun ability, but you can always give it a try. Now, let's talk about how you can use this weapon to the best of its potential, in when you should use it. So the revolver is probably best used in reaction to an enemy popping up. Now, if you're against an experienced player, they're very unlikely to just turn around and let you trick-stab them. So against an experienced player, your best bet is probably, if they're looking at you and they know you're there, best bet is the revolver. Your knife just won't cut it in those situations. However, if you see a group of enemies, your knife is the indisputable best way of dealing with them, because it has the insta-kill and it doesn't have to recharge between shots. Like the Ambassador, it has a cooldown on headshot. That brings me on to my next tip as well, which is when you're using the Ambassador, don't forget the cooldown exists, because otherwise you will not find yourself dealing triple damage even if you hit the head every single time. Now, the cooldown lasts until the beginning of the reload animation, and so you can tell just from looking at that. Also, your crosshair will become larger when your gun is on cooldown, as you probably already know. Sorry if you can hear background noise in these clips, by the way. I have absolutely no idea what these guys are talking about. Now let's talk about what you should pair the Ambassador with. Of course, it can partner well with a variety of different knives, PDAs and sappers, but if you're going to be using the Ambassador, I recommend the stock knife. And this is because if you don't have the extended cloak duration of the L'étranger, you would probably be best off having a weapon like the stock knife, because it doesn't come with any health reductions like the Kanada's kunai or the Big Earner. This is just my opinion, you can use it with those if you want, but I tend to find it's a little too easy for myself to get killed if I have both the downside of having that less health and the reduced cloak duration of not equipping the L'étranger, which means I'm just a little bit too easy to kill in those situations, so I prefer to equip the stock knife. Just one solid 125 health. It's still not very much, but you can get away with some things that you couldn't otherwise. And generally, I think this will work best with the stock sapper, because the red tape record is basically a downgrade. And as for which invis watch you should use it with, I think this one's probably a little bit controversial. I personally quite like it with the Dead Ringer, but I've also used it with the stock invis watch. When I'm trying to gun people down with the Ambassador, I don't like the Cloak and Dagger, because I don't like sitting around when I could be headshotting someone. That might just be me. In the end, you can pair this with what you like and enjoy it, but overall that's what I think about the Ambassador. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.